Well, folks, back again. Earlier I said I was going to start talking about a little bit of wildlife that we have around here. Now, last week there was a moose that was out on the main road, and we had a lot more snow, and the banks were pretty high, and this was like a last year's calf, so it weighed anyways from 350, 400 pounds, and it was in the road, and it had stopped the traffic, and it was walking up to vehicles, and my stepdad, 81 years old, up the camp road here, what I call the camp road, it's our privately maintained road. He lives way at the end, way up. And he tried to get out of the road because he was afraid that someone was going to hit it. So I had traffic backed up, both sides. And then we didn't hear anything more about it. Well, down around quite a ways through the woods, there was another moose about the same age that a woman said that it was friendlier than what it should be. And we thought it had made its way through the woods and down that way, but I found out today, this afternoon, that moose had ventured down the road here and to someone across the way, went into their yard and was hanging around. It just wasn't acting right. So it didn't move on. That's another moose that may have the same issue down, way down. But this moose here went up to this in the yard of these people, and I know of these people. They're very nice people, and was messing around with their vehicles, and it just wasn't acting right. So they called the game warden, and I was out in the yard. Actually, I was videotaping one of my other videos, and I edited that out, but I heard a gunshot, and I found out this afternoon that moose had brainworm, and the game wardens came and shot the moose. Now, a lot of you know what brainworm is, but for those of you who don't, brainworm is carried by the white-tailed deer, and it doesn't affect the deer at all, but when the deer goes to the bathroom, its feces, it drops it on the ground, and snails and slugs and all that go and they'll do their thing, right? So, and then the snails and the slugs and stuff will climb up greenery. Well, the moose eat greenery. So, a moose comes along and eats that greenery and eating the slug and the snails, well, that gets into the moose system, and it eventually goes up and attacks the central nervous system. It's a parasite, essentially. And it affects the lungs, and it affects a lot, but it's the central nervous system. So after a little bit, the moose starts coming confused, and sometimes it'll lose its hearing and eyesight, and their balance is off, and it's tired all the time. But a good sign is a moose that is too friendly, which this one was, definitely confused, and they'll often walk around in circles, and they're not afraid of humans. Humans go up and pet it, and I've heard stories throughout the years of petting moose, and the moose is just oblivious. It's confused. It doesn't even know that I'm supposed to be afraid of humans. So that moose was put down. Now, the deer can carry it. They're not affected. You can eat the deer meat. A moose that has been put down with brainworm, the meat is still good to eat, folks. You just got to cook it, right? But the meat is still good to eat. So, I don't know what the percentage is of brainworm in Maine moose. I don't know that. You can probably look it up. If you type in YouTube moose with brainworm or brainworm moose, you can probably see videos of how they act. It's a real cruel thing to happen to a moose. It's a slow death. It's sometimes life isn't fair, right? Sometimes life isn't fair, but nature is nature, and nature's not always good. Nature is nature. Nature's going to take care of nature, but, the game wardens put it out of its misery because it was suffering, folks. So, that's the moose. But we have a lot of bear here. If you watch my previous video, I don't know, the one with Big Brother in it, posted the same day as this one. And I have a lot of bear here. I could tell you a lot of stories about bear. But once I was up in my garden, and it was just before dark, and I had to clear that land, so there are a few stumps, but they're rotting now, but there was a fresh stump there, and I was sitting on that, taking a break, and I look up, and there's a bear at about 300 pounds, just laying there about 35 yards. I never heard it, just laying there, looking right at me, just like it was a bear watching TV. It just was laying there, just as content as can be. So it was spring. So, I'm used to bear. Bear are used to me. They know my smell. They know my sight. I'm sure they watch me all the time here. So I sat there and I watched it and I spoke to it. And I stood up very slowly and I looked around, because you do not want to be anywhere near a mama bear and her cubs. She's going to protect those cubs. And being in the fall, the spring, I looked around for cubs. And sometimes the cubs aren't right beside mama. They could be 100 yards away, 200 yards away. But the bear was between me and my house. Okay? There was no place for me to go. I could have gone through the woods. I didn't have any of the coops at the time. So I looked around, and as I stood up, the bear sat up on its haunches, and it was just looking at me. It didn't give any malicious intent whatsoever. So I spoke to it and made my way around slowly, backed up, and made my way down through to the road and came back to the house, and I could see it walking up the other end of my garden. So, there's a lot of stories about bear, and people are scared of bear, but you respect the bear is going to respect you. You do not. The only time I don't want to say scared, I'm very cautious, very vigilant, is in the spring when they come out of den. They're very hungry. And if they have cubs with them and it's a mama bear, you want to pay them a lot of respect, folks. You want to pay them a lot of respects. So a black bear is, and a lot of you know this, but a black bear is different than a grizzly bear. Grizzly bear, you play dead. But if a black bear comes at you, the best thing you can do is to find a stick, a green stick, like a swatch. And if it comes at you, go right for the eyes. Just keep hitting them in the eyes. You fight back on a black bear. It's different than a grizzly bear. Okay? You show them. You bristle all up, and you show them that you're a badass. And a lot of times it's just a false charge. So I've had bear up on my deck, and I've had them look in my window. And I've had them everywhere. They watch me and I watch them.